some historic fencing. So there is some historic fencing that we're going to maintain, and there will be DDOT ramps that will basically repair if we damage them during the construction. There's going to be a rain garden, which basically is going to help with all the water runoffs that, and also the statue is the bronze statue, and their base is going to be, actually I have some so this might be a better one. So basically the statue basically is placed on Indian limestone that we will basically have the pavers to match those so that pretty much everything looks the same. So that's so lighting based. We have some lighting that it's gonna LED lighting that's gonna lit the statue, and then we have some downlights as well as some standard lights around the side. So that's pretty much it. Any questions?
So where are these plans that people can see this online?
They are posted on DPR's website.
So are you when is the comment period going to be over?
A week, we usually do a week.
So it's from now to a week?
Yes.
Okay.
The lights that are going up, not to be shown on the statue, but other lighting,
Yes.
is that similar to the lighting that they put up for the streetscapes?
Yes, it's a standard standard DC lights.
Well, there's a problem with the standard DC lights. If there are buildings around the height of where those lights are, they need some sort of reflectors so that they're not shining into people's apartments and bedrooms and whatever, depending on the height of the light. I know on this K Street streetscape, we've had that as a problem, and the street light where it's up to the third floor of some of the apartment buildings, the lights are so bright that they're shining into people's bedrooms. So I don't know if there's any buildings that are surrounding that would be affected, but point of interest, just to kind of make sure that there is some sort of a reflector. They make one, but you have to make sure you put them in.
Sure.
So there are two row houses across Q Street that I would say are about 60 or 70 feet away from where the lights are going to be. And then the only other row houses are across 9th Street, which is over 120 feet away.
It may not be effective, but I know that for us it became a real problem. We actually had to have the city go back to the manufacturer and come up with something to reflect the lights that were being shined into people's homes.
Sure, we'll address that.
So there is a mature tree there that.
Yes, there actually the design basically the main factor for the design was the mature tree right there that we needed to work around there. You know, a lot of history behind the site, so we needed to maintain all those.
I have a recommendation, not that anyone is going to listen to me, but I do not recommend putting bricks down anywhere because they never get repaired. I have waited 2.5 years to get the bricks repaired in my single member district, still waiting, and they always say, but it's a new way or whatever. They always come up. I don't understand why people do it. I mean, it looks nice, but the reality check is the city does not repair it.
Do you mean pavers as well?
No, I mean the brick,
Well, both of them.
the brick especially. I can't.
So we have actually have add alternatives for the contractors, and it's gonna be cheaper to go this route, just the regular pavers. So we're gonna basically work around that and see how we can because there has been concerns about the stone, especially as a paver. So
I'm just saying the brick comes up, and I don't know why they waste the money on it.
Well, the pavers as well, the ones on the right-hand side are the same ones that we have on K Street, and they're already up.
Yeah.
I mean, you can step on one edge of it, it pops up at the other side. So you need to find a way to secure them a little bit better.
Any other questions from the commission? There's a question from the audience.
How are you doing, sir? What's the landscaping going to be? What kind of plants, foliage, aside from the trees, going to be on the site?
we haven't selected actual landscaping yet, but it's going to be native, something that's going to be good for the Washington D.C. weather.
Right, that's great. Is there a way to water them? Because, classically, DPR installs plants and they die because after about 2 weeks, no one's watering them and we're caring for them. Even native plants need some care for the first few years.
We have actually talked about some irrigation plan, but that's still in the works, so.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Can I have the microphone?
Sure.
Al?
Are there, I didn't see the graphics, but are there gonna be benches or other interpretive areas?
Yes.
Anything besides the statue itself?
Yes, there is going to be, actually, there you go.
And that's posted online?
Yes. So yes, there's going to be bench, and there's going to be, it's going to be a park that, people can, relax. So it's going to, it's not your typical memorial that,
So like how many benches?
I think we have 6 benches.
You mentioned that this started, 10 years ago? When do you anticipate it ending? What had happened in my lifetime?
So we have awarded the contract to a contractor. So the construction is supposed to start in a month or so, once we get all the approvals. So the 10 years, it's basically getting the statue, and there is a lot of back and forth that and then get the funding, and so we have the funds ready, we have the contractor, and we're just going through our formal approval process to get the project going.
And Ms. Johnson could certainly tell you all the back and forth we had to go through to get the money, to get it back again, to get it in the right hands. So this has been a very long process, but we're glad that it actually is at a point where this tribute to the father of Black history is about to become a reality. I do have the same concerns that Commissioner Nigro mentioned about bricks. I still haven't seen a brick sidewalk in the city that lasts more than a year intact, because the first time that any repairs are necessary, it never gets done to the same quality of the original construction. So I also, in my motion to support this before the Commemorative Works Committee, I will be making mention of that. But I am actually shocked to hear that there's been a change in terms of the water source being provided to this park, because that was integral. Mr. Moulton is correct. We've been in numerous meetings with the Department of Parks and Recreation, and we always heard, yes, we will be providing water to make sure that the plantings in this park don't die the way that they have in the past. So I will also include that in my motion. So this is in my single member district, so I will make a motion. Oh, question?
One more comment, Commissioner Padro. It's my understanding that for this particular park, DGS is tasked with maintaining it, which is going to be a little bit different from the other parks, and that might address the brick problem. And that also might address the water problem. So I think that is going to be a plus that we weren't anticipating previously.
Well, DGS is a relatively new agency, and the proof is in the pudding. We'd love to be able to say in a couple of years, boy, DGS does a great job with parks. So, looking forward to being able to say that, but at the moment, as Reagan said, trust but verify. So I move that Advisory Neighborhood Commission 6C support the plans prepared for Carnegie Woodson Park before the Commemorative Works Committee of the District of Columbia, provided that a water source be provided in the park to be able to maintain the greenscape, and that Indiana limestone pavers or concrete be the two paving materials that are used in the park. And I would ask for a second.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the commission? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. And yes, Chris, it has been about 10 years since there was a commemorative work reviewed by the committee. And as a matter of fact, I was one of Mayor Williams' first appointees to the committee, so I remember those. Moving on to 1300 to the 1700 blocks of 7th Street Northwest. Many of you are aware that there has been a streetscape project that has been in the works for, again, I think the better part of a decade. And we have seen presentations related to the project previously, and some phases went forward, such as a streetscape on the block where the Howard Theater is located, the 600 block of T Street, and then wrapping around that block. But there have been a number of missteps over the years, and we'd actually been given dates when the project was supposed to start, and then all of a sudden they had DDOT discovered that the wrong standards had been used in developing the construction drawings, so they had to go back and redo that, and then get back in the queue for funding. But it does appear that at long last, we're finally going to get under construction on a number of blocks that haven't seen any improvements, any significant improvements for a couple of decades. So I'm very glad that we have representatives from the District Department of Transportation here this evening to brief us on the plan, but we're especially interested in the schedule.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening. My name is Rick Kenny. I'm Program Manager with DDOT for Team 1. Can everybody hear me in the back? Okay. Well, first of all, thank you to ANC 6E for welcoming us here tonight. As Commissioner stated, tonight we will be presenting on the resurface and streetscape for 7th Street from N Street to Florida. After the presentation, we respectfully request a resolution of support if you find the project is in favor. With that, I'd like to introduce Adil Rizvi, our project manager, and he's going to go through our presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I don't think I need the mic, but just to make sure, everyone can hear me in the back, right? Excellent. Just to kind of follow up, this is an overview for the resurfacing streetscape project on 7th Street from N to Florida. This portion was originally part of the Howard Theater Rehabilitation Project, but to speed along the Howard Theater project, the total reconstruction, the 7th Street streetscape portion was removed. Howard Theater is constructed using local funds, and this portion here on 7th Street is a federally funded project. And now it's going to be coming to fruition soon. We'll get to that. So the scope of work, it's typically known as a resurfacing project, but it's kind of misleading because we're including, building face to building face streetscape improvements, which includes street lighted traffic signal upgrades, sidewalk replacement, LID and tree space upgrades, which LID is a low impact development. DDOT has completed and released a green infrastructure project or standards, which will follow. I can explain that a little bit more without getting technical. It's basically capturing the stormwater, filtering it in our vegetation before it gets downstream, capturing some of the pollutants in the treescape area. We'll also upgrade and comply with the ADA standards in the corridor, which varies across the corridor. Curb and gutter upgrades, signing and pavement marking upgrades to increase the visibility of the pavement markings and signs, and then drainage improvements along the corridor. So here we are with an existing corridor. So the image is actually looking south towards the convention center from Florida Avenue. And here we are at N here, and then this is Florida Avenue. So our limits of work are from N Street to Florida Avenue, along 7th Street here. So it,
And
like
our
I said,
jurisdiction is only up to S.
I'm sorry?
Our jurisdiction is only to S.
Yes, yes. Right, but the limits actually for this project continue to Florida. As I mentioned before, the project excludes a Howard Theater area, which is previously constructed. And then the map here highlights the 4 new developments. So we have the O Street Market, Jefferson, we have the UNCF building, and then Progression. So the existing conditions that we're facing out there now, inconsistent sidewalk distribution of materials. Some areas, you have tree boxes that are varying sizes as you go through. We have existing brick material abutting concrete. In some areas it's new concrete, in some areas it's old concrete previously established. We have substandard unsafe sidewalks where if it's not a new sidewalk or you have old brick, it has come up and made it unsafe to actually traverse. We have non-compliant ADA handicap ramps, which is actually visible right there. We have a citywide initiative which we're going to expand and improve our ADA accessibility, something similar to that. The deteriorated roadway service and pavement markings. So as you can see in the pictures, and these are old standards here. These are kind of deteriorated paving, and the pavement condition throughout the corridor is deteriorated. And we'll go and mill and resurface and restripe all of that. And then substandard lighting, which I'll get to a little bit later on. We'll improve the lighting at the intersections as well as throughout the corridor. So this is a typical section of the roadway, looking in either direction here. Looking north, I'm sorry. So you have a travel lane, if you have a bike lane, and then a parking lane. So that distribution will not change. We're not changing the width of the roadway. And then we'll have a planter space, which also includes, if you linearly, our street lights, and then the sidewalks on both sides. Again, this is a half section here. It's consistent with the typical section. So we have a driving lane, a bike lane, and parking, with the tree space and the lighting space buffer between that, the building face and the sidewalk here. Some of the examples we have for improvements, for each tree space here, we'll have an ornamental fence to protect it. It's open on 3 sides, and on the vehicle side it's open, closed on 3 sides, and on the vehicle side it's open. We have these standard trash receptacles we'll be installing. And then the street lights here, so at the intersection we have what we call a teardrop, which projects out into the crosswalk for visibility. And then we'll be installing at, I think it's 50 feet intervals, the twin 20 for mid-block, making consistent corridor. Some of the materials that we'll be using in the sidewalks, this is what we call the LID treatment. It's what we call permeable interlocking concrete pavers, PICP. So basically they're concrete pavers that look like cobblestone, and they're set in a sand cement base to allow water to actually permeate through. It allows for not only collection of pollutants in there, but it also allows watering of the adjacent tree box. And here's an example here of an existing corridor that was done previously. So here we are with the schedule. The anticipated start of construction is end of summer, late summer, early fall of this year, 2014. The duration we're expecting is between 9 and 12 months, weather permitting. And our working schedule is from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Some pre-approved Saturday work, but no Sunday work. I want to make sure we clarify that for any blockage of traffic, any detours, anything that's may be necessary will be done in off-peak, non-rush hour, just to be clear. The contract documents, the design, we're at 100%. We're awaiting final feedback and coordination from WMATA, which we're required to obtain releases from all utility agencies. That is the one agency that remains, and hopefully the next few weeks we'll have that in hand and proceed for construction documents. Like I said, all other agencies have approved the plans. That's my contact information. My name is Adil Rizvi. My number is 671-5111. We have copies of the presentation here as well, and my email is here. Anybody has any questions or feedback or concerns that are not voiced here, I'll be glad to entertain them. Thank
Mr.
you.
Risby, one of the things that we talked about when we met a few months ago on this was the staging of the construction. And obviously, every block is not going to be under construction for 9 to 12 months.
Right.
So can you talk about the phasing, please?
The staging or the phasing for construction is something that we're going to look at when we get into closer to construction issue. So we have also, you might be aware, north of Florida Avenue, the Georgia Avenue bus lane project. So we're going to coordinate with that project so we don't have long-running stretches of disturbance that have no reason. It's not developed yet because we're trying to figure out the schedule for the Georgia Avenue and how it corresponds to our project here. But our conversation, that's one of the flags that we put in, and actually, it'll be written in the specifications as well.
If I could add, we're the same team that was responsible for the U Street streetscape project from 9th to 12th, or 9th to 14th, sorry. There are similar issues. We had, a dense commercial corridor, lots of pedestrian traffic. We had a metro entrance, and we worked very closely. One of the things we do with our construction management team is work very closely with retail and residents to get the word out and work with them even with special accommodations. For instance, the florist, I think at 12th and U, we were supposed to work on their block on Valentine's Day week. So obviously that was a special request. We asked our contractor to work around that. But overall, that project was received favorably. We learned a lot of lessons on other projects. Adams Morgan was an earlier project that we've learned a lot of lessons that we'll be applying here on 7th Street. And I just wanted to add one more thing. As far as a point of certainty, we're actually obligating the final funding, but we're in the final steps of appropriating the funds, which basically means we're there. We are coming for construction. So I'm sorry we've had a couple start and stops, but we're finally there.
There are a couple of blocks that you noted that are related to construction projects that are in process or recently been completed. So presumably those blocks are not going to be disturbed by your construction.
No, we eliminated those projects from limits. We've coordinated extensively with them, so our project will basically tie in everything and make a consistent corridor. We won't redo the work. Their utilities will be up and running. The sidewalk and ADA will be installed. The trees and street light will be installed. And just to clarify, it's all concrete. We're removing the brick.
Except for the green zone. The tree planting green zone does have cobble.
The cobbles, right, the cobble.
But there are blocks that were not built to those standards, such as the 1800 block of 7th Street. Version Place did their own thing.
That's brick.
Yeah.
And
There's
that
a
will
sliver, yeah.
remain because it's wrong to go rip it up
Yeah.
since it's brand new.
They have special permits that they've been issued through coordination and their own means for special type of pavers. Our concrete pavers will be similar to that, so you get a similar corridor. I think Jefferson was the only one that deviated a little bit.
Is this online? This whole list, what I was in my hand?
This one, we can make available to ANC 6E. Is that an appropriate way, or we can?
Just so I
put
can
it on?
post it somewhere. So,
Sure.
Should we,
I can give you,
Commissioner Padra, we have your, we've been coordinating with
That's
you.
fine.
We'll send a copy.
I'll send
share
it.
it with everybody.
Yeah.
Thank
Sure. Will do.
Any other questions from members of the commission?
Of course, you know I always have questions. Actually, I have two sets of questions. The first one is the decorative ornamental little fencing things that you're putting around the tree boxes. If you've walked around K Street or L Street where they're already in place, they're ruined, they're totally useless. I hope that when you do this, you're going to take a look and see the sturdiness of them, because if a man sits on that fencing, it's gonna collapse, it's gonna just careen in. And I have noticed that, not only people sitting on them, but trucks going near them, they just fall apart. So I hope you're using quality ornamental structure, because otherwise it's a waste of your money and a waste of the beauty that it's supposed to enhance. That's number one. The,
But that is a very good issue, because consistently, and this isn't something new, those tree guards take a beating, and they do not hold up very well. I mean, we've had some on 9th Street that were just installed, in the past decade, and sometimes within weeks of their installation, a truck has jumped the curb and trashed them. So what is DDOT's plan for maintaining these?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we just had a meeting on this yesterday. So we're improving the connection to the sidewalk. So we're anchoring it not only vertically, but horizontally into the sidewalk. There aren't a whole lot of structures that are that thin that can withstand the impact of a truck, but our urban forestry administration is actively maintaining trees and ornaments. That's one of the discussion points we had last night. So I'm not sure of their inventory process, but the new standards that we have for installation will be anchored in 2 directions, and that should hopefully resolve a lot of that.
So if we have lists of locations where there are these damaged tree guards, who should we send them to?
Send the grit.
not you, right?
Anybody but.
For all maintenance requests, 311 is the best because it's tracked, it's logged, and there's a track to make sure that we're responding. As a secondary effort, as a broader issue, a large issue, because it's not just specific locations, I think reaching out to urban forestry, because you're citing it as a systemic issue, not just a repair request. They are a aesthetic enhancement to streetscapes. They're in streetscape projects. That's not to say that if the corridor didn't want them, that we couldn't remove them. So there's that option too. It's an extra cost. We're here to hear from you.
I don't think we want them removed.
Sure.
Maintained.
Okay.
But I mean, once something happens to them, I mean, if you just take a ride on K Street and L Street especially, they're just destroyed. And the fact of the matter is, they were a piece of junk when they were put in. And, somebody leaning on them or whatever, they've done one of these,
I wonder if there's an older standard that's kind of like an upside down U.
No, these are straight across.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're brand new, they haven't even been in a year.
Okay.
On either street. But if you're having the same ones put up with this project, I mean, it seems to me that you're wasting a whole lot of money if it's not going to be a quality product.
To be clear, it's 2 assemblies, so it's a top portion that kind of fits into a plate at the bottom. That plate is what connects it to the side, or will be connecting it to the sidewalk. So when we're installing it, we're thinking that the improved connection and the base of what we're going to be installing will remedy that.
I hope so.
The maintenance part is something that kind of goes to another division, but the installation, I think we're improving that.
And
Well, I was going to say that we want to be the guinea pigs as to seeing how you're going to maintain these things.
right.
I think I would rephrase and say you're the role model to see how it works.
My second question has to do with the ADA ramps. I don't know, many of the curb cuttings that allow for either wheelchair or handicapped people to go down at curbside have these red, I want to say they're rubber with bumps. A blind person can't use that well if they're using a cane. It's not is that part of the ADA law that has to be that specific thing? Because it's extremely hard. The bumps are high, they're an inch high. And so wheelchairs have problems getting over them, blind people have problems when they're using their canes. Is that what you're saying you're going to be putting in on your curb cutouts?
It's the domes, but not that material. It's actually going to be embedded into the ramp. That's the new standard. So you have the domes that allows the visually impaired to detect an entry into a roadway, but it's not protruding up from the surface. Just the domes are. So those domes.
But they are required.
That is a requirement?
That's a detectable warning, and it's part of ADA requirements before entering the roadway. You must place them. Now, they shall be oriented such that a wheelchair can guide straight through them.
Yeah.
That's one of the, they shouldn't be shifted or on an angle, because then it makes it challenging for the wheelchair to traverse. But as long as they're inappropriately, a blind person, you can detect them, the detectable warnings, and we must put them in.
Okay. The other, just a point of interest, I lived in Southwest for many, many years, and all the walk, don't walk signs had a buzzer that when it was don't walk, it buzzed, so people who were blind, and we had many of them in that area, knew by hearing that buzzer that they weren't supposed to go out into the street. Is there any consideration for those kinds of things on some of these corners?
There's three things being, one is an audible, and there's a pedestrian sensor as well, so it detects groups of pedestrians coming to the intersection, and one is for, so that controls the actuator for pedestrians as well as the traffic signal, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on part of the commission? Questions from the audience, Mr. Bolton?
Just
Oh,
Oh, okay, I have two questions actually. The first would be, are any bike racks planned in this streetscape project? And the other is, is your equipment and are your vehicles going to be taking street parking?
The second question, during construction, we anticipate losing, just the construction area, so block by block or the size of the street. They will
But
be.
not side streets or?
No, we're extending approximately 10 to 20 feet into the side street at maximum. The bike racks, that's the first question he asked. As of yet, we have no plan, but that's one of the comments and feedback we'll take. If there's a need, then we'll look to where to have them installed.
I would say they would be highly desired.
Yes, so we would look for feedback from you, placement, location.
Martin Bolton, I'm actually on the board of the Washington Area Bicycle Association, so I want to echo the encouragement to put in bike racks, but these cobble pavers or even the brick, those aren't great places to put in bike racks. I've seen them lifted right out of the ground. So we need something that's far more permanent if you're going to put bike racks in those sidewalks anywhere. And I might consider the bike corrals on the street if there's a potential for that. I mean, we have so many cars in this area, and we don't want more people bringing their cars into the area. But if they can bike and park immediately, if you build it, they'll come. And that would be a great thing. Another comment on the cobble